Hey everyone, welcome back with Beano Mac, where today we're going to continue our playthrough of ECW House Party Mixtape by the fantastic GM Spectre. And honestly, if you are unaware, this is a ROM hack that was, replaces the original WWF WrestleMania 2000 made by Aki on the N64. And, replaces it and makes it into essentially an ECW All-Stars kind of mode. And we're doing the month of October, an Extreme Road Tour, which is the season mode, playing as RVD and, of course, Sabu, who unfortunately has recently passed. I think it was actually last Saturday. I think it was right around the time I uploaded, in which, I figured out, I think a few hours after that he had unfortunately, passed at the age of 60. And I don't know, I mean, a lot of people say that, 60 is young, and to a degree I think it is. I mean, 65 is retirement age, but I think I've come to expect that in the wrestling industry that 60 is actually a pretty long age for some of these guys to live. Even Piper himself famously said that he's not going to make it to 65, and he ended up not making it, unfortunately. But I think it's just, the nature of the business. And maybe in the future we're going to see guys, that are, in the WWE now, or the 2000s and stuff like that. Probably more like the 2010s and stuff like that. And the guys that are here now that seem like they're healthier, smarter with their decisions, obviously more well-informed. And obviously there's still some crazy dudes in the wrestling industry, but I'm sure most of them are not doing crazy hardcore drugs and muscle relaxers and all that other stuff, and a lot of the vices that the previous generations of wrestling have had to deal with and suffer through. So hopefully we're going to start seeing, eventually they'll be able to live much longer and more full lives, but I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. But as far as Sabu goes, obviously he's the secondary character I'm playing as in this Extreme Road Tour and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I mean, I've already said this multiple times in my other videos. I wasn't the biggest ECW fan, but I am a big fan of RVD, simply probably because he was in the WWF, of course, WWE as well. And Sabu was also someone when WWE had the WWE ECW brand that relaunched in 2006 and stuff like that. Sabu was, hired and given a chance that he may not have otherwise gotten, I feel like. And but that said, I think he made the most of it, at least when he first was able to be, introduced to the roster. It was definitely, I feel like it was treated with respect when ECW first came in to the WWE, and I feel like it went downhill very, very, very quickly, and I do think it inevitably would have, just because it wouldn't have been the initial spirit of what ECW was meant to be, which was obviously the extreme, hardcore, chaotic, wild, alternative to wrestling and stuff like that. It was never going to be that in the WWE, but it did feel like at first the WWE did kind of earnestly attempt to capitalize on some of its stars, and it definitely built up a few of them. Obviously Kurt Angle was sent over the ECW when it first came out, and I feel like Kurt Angle, especially around that time, he really would have been someone that could have fit with the vibe of ECW, the wrestling machine, Kurt Angle and stuff like that. And he always had those really cool the mouth guard. I thought was pretty awesome. That said ECW on it, but obviously we got a lot of the ECW originals, and most of them were not going to be used effectively or anything like that. But I feel like they did try with RVD and Sabu initially. It's just obviously they were eventually, pulled over and busted for pot, which at that time was kind of like a big deal in society, and don't get to pull that one out very often. But obviously that was a big deal at the time, even though everybody would look at RVD and was like, oh yeah, that guy's a pothead. And then Sabu, it seemed like also there was a lot of issues with him and kind of not following the rules and the scripts and the WWE styles, and that's just kind of how it is with certain wrestlers. They kind of just You know, and I can understand it, because even at that time, I think that's when WWE was really becoming highly scripted, and you know, even I think it was 2004 where like they started laying out everything you had to say in promos, and that you couldn't go off the cuff. And I think it was Ric Flair who was actually the guy who instituted that, or because of him, I should say, because I think it was Taboo Tuesday 2004. They say where there was some big network studio executive or some stockholder or something like that that was attending that show, and he got really pissed off when he heard Ric Flair say something about like how somebody was like a bleeding virgin, and it was up for Ric Flair to, you know, pop their cherry or something weird and stupid like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something kind of crazy, but you know, not too crazy for, you know, the time, I should say. It's just TV was kind of changing at that point, and obviously then the Chris Benoit stuff would happen, and eventually, you know, WWE went PG and stuff. But overall, I mean, just with how society is nowadays anyway, I mean, the WWE would have just kind of shifted and changed and went to PG regardless, just because of how sensitive a lot of people are, and the WWE is a publicly traded company, and they want to try to appeal to the, you know, the most people they can and stuff like that. And oh my, we got the Tasmaniac. Must be a silent guy. Can we survive the Tasmaniac's challenge? I wonder, am I going to face him at the end of this month then? But that's pretty cool. Yeah, GM Spectre put a lot of those classic versions of characters in this ROM hack. So there's like a Taz one. We already took on the Surfer Sandman. And then I think there's like a Mikey Whipwreck one, but I don't know if he's like one of the ones you have to like pick a specific character and unlock them through like a match or thing, or, you know, he might even just be like the guy like when we get to whatever is in place of WrestleMania. I think it's Hostile City Showdown, if I remember on the select screen anyway, but he might just be like a manager character initially. But we'll find out. But back to WWE ECW, I feel like there was a few guys in there that the WWE, Sabu, one of them, really wanted to get behind, and Sabu was just not really up for playing ball when you really think about it. And I think that a lot of times people look at it that Vince just purposely tried to bury some people because, you know, he's like saying, hey, I'm the man, this or that. And I've already had this, you know, shared my thoughts on this a lot of times. I don't think that that's the case. You know, I don't care what some people say. I mean, whether you're a big shot or not, I don't think people are going to invest millions of dollars into people just to immediately bury them and just show like, oh, hey, yeah, see, I'm the man here. It doesn't matter what the fans or you want or anything like that. Vince is a crazy guy, but I think he's more of an incompetent kind of guy rather than a deliberate, you know, wanting to hold people back. I mean, I do believe he has done that in the past, but like, for example, our particular case here, I don't think they looked at ECW and said, I want to bury this company and what it means. I think he wanted to legitimately make his own version of ECW, and, you know, I think RVD and Sabu were kind of the only ECW originals that he saw value in. You know, I think Tommy Dreamer was also around and given a much bigger chance, but, you know, a lot of those guys like Stevie Richards, for example, he was also, you know, someone who was kind of a jobber for years. So like, even when you think about it, why would you try and, you know, build him when he's already kind of had that kind of stink on him when you think about it? I think there's been like a few other guys that were kind of like that in the original ECW. Balls Mahoney, I mean, they could have actually done something with him because I don't think he was under contract initially, but guys like him and Just Incredible, they were kind of just brought in to put over new talent like CM Punk and Kevin Thorne and stuff like that. And, you know, once again, like ECW, like, and it makes sense too. I think Vince wanted to have some established guys like, you know, RVD and Sabu were the originals, bring in some WWE names that, you know, fans would be interested in and checking out because, you know, they were big in WWE, Big Show, Kurt Angle, even if they don't fit that vibe. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand for the casual fan, is that, yes, RVD was a big deal, but like, RVD, he was kind of just getting the chance to really, well, that kind of pisses me off, but RVD was just kind of getting the chance to become a main eventer. It would be kind of different if he was given that shot, because he could have been a big deal and a huge main eventer, I feel like, way before that, because he was kind of very popular instantly. But when you kind of think of the casual fans, what's going to draw people to this new product that maybe already kind of has like a certain reputation for being, maybe too violent for the casual WWE audience, or for maybe, to get people interested in this new product, and that's by adding in guys like Kurt Angle and Big Show. So, yes, they didn't exactly fill the ECW vibe, but I think a lot of times people, when they look at certain things in WWE, they expect to get what they got in other companies, and I think people are always going to be disappointed in that when they see that kind of thing. And that goes for like indie wrestlers that come into the WWE, or wrestlers that were from TNA and stuff like that. And I think that's a lot of time when they expect one thing. They expect the WWE to cater to like maybe that superstar style or what they were in WCW and stuff like that, when the WWE style is essentially like, okay, you're in this company now, Vince expects you to adapt and kind of create your own thing, your own character, and something that works, and something that the WWE can essentially make its own and monetize. And I think that's why DDP became the stalker character. I don't think it was a blatant attempt to bury like DDP, for example. I just think that Vince is very incompetent and thinks to himself, well, it's got to be the WWE style. And he's probably looked at DDP and thought to himself, wow, this is one creepy looking motherfucker. And I think that's why even after the stalker gimmick, he had like that weird positively page with the weird smile thing and stuff like that, and the goofiness. I think he just looked at him kind of like how he looked at Christian. Like he just looked at Christian and thought he was like an ugly dude, I guess. And I think he's seen the same thing with DDP. He had the People's Champion, which was The Rock, and he, I think it's been said multiple times by so many people around Vince that Vince didn't ever watch anybody around him, right? He didn't watch ECW, he didn't watch WCW. He just kind of heard descriptions, and you can see that in various characters such as, Stone Cold that became the ringmaster. He didn't watch Steve Austin in WCW or ECW. All he did was his agents and, staff around him said, hey, we think the best way to sell this to Vince is, Stone Cold, he's the ringmaster. He's a great technician, stuff like that. That's where the ringmaster came from. And because, for whatever reason, Vince said, I guess, oh, well, if he's a ringmaster, then he probably can't talk if he's just a technical wrestler. So that's why they gave him Ted DiBiase as his manager. And then eventually he was able to evolve into the Stone Cold we all know and love. And unfortunately, a lot of guys aren't given that opportunity. DDP unfortunately was not. And it was a terrible, use of a DDP. It was, 100% the wrong move. But I don't think that it came from him looking at it and thinking, oh, well, WCW, we got to bury that guy. And even guys with Booker T and stuff like that, Booker T was different in WCW than he was in WWE, but Booker T was still, he ended up still being a big star because he kind of adapted to a WWE style. Same with like Hurricane to a lesser degree. I mean, he was 3 count in WCW, but obviously, I think he even came in initially as like Shane Helms, like Sugar Shane Helms. I could be wrong, but I think eventually then that's when he became the comic book character, made himself like a WWE style character, and the rest is history. I mean, he's one of the most memorable mid-card acts in the Ruthless Aggression era. And there's probably a few other examples I can think of, but once again, like, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it really does come to incompetency. I think Goldberg's another example. I think this would be like the last example I use, but I think with Goldberg, it was kind of just like they tried to have like a half Goldberg WCW and a half WWE version where they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. And what the hell? Alright, that was really lame. I hate how you have to be looking at the guy doing the pin to kick out the pin. It's like, come on, like, why can't I just, I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it now. But like with Goldberg, for example, yeah, he came in and he squashed and he dominated at first, but I think after a while they tried to adapt him to the WWE style and say, hey, you need to have these kind of long matches. You know, you can't just be the squashing all of our guys kind of Goldberg you were in the past. And, you know, there was another few goofy things that Goldberg did, WWE did, that ended up ruining all that stuff. And, you know, eventually Goldberg did come back in 2016, and after his feud with Brock Lesnar, people kind of got sick of him, so what are you going to do? But rest in peace, Mr. Sabu. Unfortunately, you know, it's, once again, I didn't really watch him all that much, but he had, I kind of was building up to this the whole episode, and I got off track. But to be honest, like I said, I never watched him in ECW originally, but I did recently watch his, you know, match with Terry Funk and Sabu. You know, the I forget what the pay-per-view is now, but it was like 1997, in which they had the barbed wire match, and that was crazy. I don't know. There are certain things where I kind of look at ECW, like I've seen some clips, and it's just like they kind of blatantly set up spots to do extreme stuff. And but I will say, and I don't really, I'm not a big fan of that. And like even WWE definitely did it at the time in those TLC matches, which I was not a big fan of either. But I will say, you know, I do respect him for putting his body on the line. Obviously, he had the scars to prove it. In that same match, I mean, he freaking cut open his freaking bicep and just kept taping it up and stuff like that. And like even when he was in the middle of getting like hit with an attack by Terry Funk, like a neck breaker, he was still just taping it up and stuff like that. It was crazy. You know, you never say that Sabu was not dedicated to the fans and his job and the industry that he dedicated his life to. But for me, what really stuck out to me for Sabu was, I really did love his matches with John Cena and Rey Mysterio. Even if the Rey Mysterio one had a little bit of a disappointing end to it, I just feel like even at that time, Sabu, he just always was such a unique wrestler that he was able to do lots of really crazy maneuvers and stuff like that you did not see at that time in mainstream wrestling. And, you know, he did crazy stuff like the DETs, you know, the moves onto the announce table, jumping off the ropes, crashing through tables. You know, it was phenomenal, the crazy stuff they did. And to me, the thing that always stuck out the most about Sabu was just his aura, you know, his look. I mean, his theme song and, you know, the Arabian look and stuff like that. He looked like a true psychopath. Just the moment he walked out onto the stage, you kind of looked at him and was like, yeah, this guy's not all there, you know, obviously. And, you know, I think he was one of those guys that really fit the character that they were portraying and stuff like that, where it didn't seem like it was anything too crazy, you know. It wasn't like a crazy gimmick. It felt more like an extension of their personality, and obviously the music as well. You know, I mean, that's just one of the most badass WWE themes I've ever heard. You know, with the rock and the Arabian music, one of the greatest. Actually, I used to have it as my ringtone, or my alarm, I should say. And I remember I was taking a finals for my test one time, and I usually, like, I'm a moron, so I always had to take, like, you know, stay the extra time for the test. Except for this one time, I think it was like an English one, and it was obviously if your phone went off or anything like that at any point during the test, it was an automatic fail. And I had an alarm set, I think, for like a test in the future and stuff like that. And this is if I had actually stayed like I usually do to try and, you know, finish up and stuff like that and not take my time, then my phone would have went off because I forgot to turn it off, and it would have played. It would have it would have blared Sabu's ringtone, because I remember we were in the hallway, me and my buddy, just walking, talking, you know, after the test, and it just went off all of a sudden. I just remember he jumped because it was, you know, it just went off suddenly, and it was loud as hell. And it's just one of those things where I thank God every day that, like, that was like the one test where I didn't like stay extra time to finish and stuff like that, because I would have just failed for like the entire year at that point. But I don't know. Thankfully, you know, I was saved from my own stupidity. I don't know why I didn't just turn off my phone and bring it to the table at the front, but, you know, hey, I didn't get caught. I didn't cheat or anything like that, and obviously I didn't fail the final, but it's just a funny little memory associated with Sabu. Golly, gee whiz, I just can't finish these guys here. But we do have a lot of pouring out of, tributes and stuff like that for Sabu. Although some people are it really actually kind of pissed me off. Some people are being very disrespectful about it. So apparently, Sabu, he did use the N-word on a few occasions. I guess he was in an argument with Taz or whatever on Twitter, and he called Taz the N-word, which doesn't really make any sense to begin with. I mean, not that even if he was using it in the correct context, not that that makes it any better, but I'm just saying, like, Taz is actually Italian, and I think it even said his mom was of Irish descent, so it just doesn't make any sense why Sabu would use that. But I think in the later years of his life, Sabu said some homophobic and racist remarks, and he said he didn't really feel bad about it or anything like that. And I don't think racism is excusable or homophobia or anything like that. The fact is I think, and this might really piss a lot of people off, honestly, I do feel like there are worse things as far as just if we keep it at words. Obviously, if you bring it to like a much more dangerous, or trying to tell people about, these people are bad or this group of people are terrible or anything like that. I don't think Sabu ever said anything like that. He just said, like he said the N-word, and he used it pretty liberally, and I think he probably said gay and call people, the F word, I'll just say, because I don't want to say it. But I do think that, when it is words, I mean, obviously it's not appropriate, it isn't cool to say that kind of stuff, but I think there are worse things in society, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth, because I was looking at this tribute on Reddit, and, for Sabu, and this is actually when I learned of Sabu saying this kind of stuff, because I don't really keep up on Twitter or anything like that. I'm never going to have a Twitter account or an X account or Blue Sky or any of that stuff, because that's just the worst place on the internet. And somebody shared a link to an article of Sabu saying that stuff on a tribute for Sabu, saying save your hatred, the same hatred you have for Vince and Hulk Hogan that you do for Sabu. He doesn't deserve this, tribute type stuff. He's a terrible guy. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, what an asshole to just pretty much say, well, I think this guy is racist, which he's not entirely wrong, obviously, if he said that, but to just kind of go and try and crash someone's tribute of a guy that literally just recently passed because you don't like the guy, you feel like everybody needs to have the same mindset as you to be, disrespectful, and essentially crashes, tribute like that really kind of, it really irritated me, I'm not gonna lie, put me in a sour mood. Another thing that, in a similar way too, is that, I was on the N64 Reddit, and that's kind of my safe haven, essentially, on the internet. Obviously on the internet, everybody knows it's a pretty shitty place for the most part. Reddit is definitely one of those places that's very highly political, and everybody's always calling each other out. I don't really give a shit what side of the political spectrum you're on, or anything like that. Or, and I don't really care that Reddit is apparently, I don't really go on those things, but apparently it's more left-leaning. But, I avoid all that kind of stuff, because the only things I really visit are the Mortal Kombat subreddit, the N64 wrestling game subreddits, which is essentially like the Aki ones, because anytime if you post anything that's not Aki, it's like you have to have half the people say about oh, you acclaim terrible, oh yay terrible, it's like, yeah, we get it, they're not as good as Aki, but I guess just people have different opinions, so it's whatever. But as far as this issue, it was about a few days ago in which RGT85, he uploaded a picture of, I guess he visited Hulk Hogan at his beach shop or something like that in Tampa, and he got Hulk Hogan to sign his book, The Art of N64 Wrestling. And when I seen it, I just thought it was cool, so I went to go and, just say, hey, good for you, man. And all the comments, man, I mean, they were just so negative towards it. I get it, people hate Hulk Hogan, but all he did was sign a book, and people were saying, telling, RGT to throw out the book. It went down in value. Some guy called him a loser, And the thing that kind of really pissed me off too is, you know, Hulk Hogan, he is a moron. He's a very ignorant, racist human being. However, the fact is, you know, people were comparing him to the KKK, and some guy even said, oh, it's the equivalent of, you know, when Hitler signed, you know, a document in 1925, you know. No, it's not the same thing, man. And racism is unacceptable, yes, but, like, I hate when people bring ignorance and stuff like that into such a conversation, because it downplays the severity of, you know, like, you know, actual racist crimes and, you know, and hate crimes and all that sort of stuff, and the serious issues, you know, like Hulk Hogan, he is an idiot, but no, he doesn't want to eradicate, you know, black people. He doesn't want to, you know, just have an all-white race or anything like that. He's a racist asshole, and, you know, he said a lot of stupid things in the past, and obviously, you know, he is a selfish individual, but no, I don't think he wants to. He's not literally Hitler. He's not a Nazi. He's not a KKK member. He's just an idiot. Like, let's be honest. I think society is so terrible at using those terms and, you know, making everything as worse as it possibly can be, just, you know, to. I don't even know why. Just to make their hate justifiable, I guess, but. Either way, that's not what this video is about. I'm not trying to bring all that stuff in here, but, like, you know, and make it political. But it's just so sad because, you know, when a guy just, you know, wants to share a simple picture of him, you know, getting his book signed and stuff like that, it's not about, like, the post instantly goes from me. It's not about, like, a guy sharing a cool thing. It's about, you know, political issues and a whole bunch of drama, and everybody has to voice their disapproval and let them know, oh, we don't like this, yada yada. It's like. And people who are just trying to, you know, mind their own business and just say, oh, yeah, you know, good for you. You know, that's cool. You got Hulk Hogan to sign your book. They were even getting downvoted simply because they were not, you know, pushing the message of, yeah, fuck Hulk Hogan, this or that, man. It's just so lame. Like, that's... The N64 Wrestling Games Reddit is like my safe haven from all that stupid drama bullshit and stuff like that. And that really kind of pissed me off and upset me. Like, Hulk Hogan's not a good guy, we get that, but can you not make it about, like, how terrible of a guy he is or anything like that? And then, of course, you also had the people that, you know, had to go the opposite way, in which they were arguing, oh, look at all these snowflakes, you know, getting upset about Hulk Hogan, oh, you know, who cares if he's a racist, all that stupid stuff. It's like, man, I don't want to see that stupid drama argument crap on, you know, like I said, my safe haven, the place where I can go to escape all of the stupid race and political issues that you see all over the internet. That's the point of wrestling. That's the point of going to those kind of specific Reddits, so you don't have to hear that silly nonsense. And I don't know. I guess, you know, I can separate the characters that we see on screen and stuff like that from the real life human beings, and I know others can't. Like, wrestling is a very weird area when it comes to that in particular, but, you know, it's just sad that simply, you know, sharing a picture of an autograph made, you know, so many people react in a negative way, and, you know, even those trying to avoid the drama got downvoted, and even others trying to troll the people, like I said, you know, it just made a big mess of a post. And I hope in the future nothing like that post causes any sort of issues or drama in the future, since, like I said, the N64 Wrestling Games Reddit is my safe haven from all the horseshit you see all over the internet, where we can just share cool things and talk about our favorite wrestling games and not race or political issues. But I don't know, I mean, I'm probably falling on deaf ears as far as that kind of stuff goes. But, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, the world isn't going to end, and people aren't going to die because somebody got an autograph from Hulk Hogan, even if Hulk Hogan's an asshole. Sorry for the downer ending, guys, but it was just really kind of grind my gears to have that kind of, you know, argument and discussion in, you know, a place that I love. I don't know. You guys let me know down below what you think. Thanks for watching, though, and remember to have a nice day.